Hello and welcome to Last Week in AI, a not replaced yet show. I'm Nick Bushkar, and each day my brother and I, Jesse, break down the AI news that you need to know. In less than 30 minutes, you'll be caught up and ready to be your local AI expert. If you find this useful, we would love your help. Please think of a family member, a friend, a colleague, and share this with them. Thanks so much. Let's get into it.
Monday.
Today's Monday, April 21st, 2025. To get around U.S. sanctions, Huawei is readying their new AI chip for mass shipment as China seeks NVIDIA alternatives. China is also saying that embodied AI is reshaping daily life. Chinese leaders see AI as their key to upgrading military strength and solving problems created by a shrinking workforce. The trial against Google has started. The government is claiming that Google could use AI to extend their search monopoly. And that's going to be an interesting case because they have been pouring a bunch of money into this administration to try and get out of that. The Mary Kay O'Connor Process Safety Center and EnerSys, something I've never heard of, are creating a training platform that simulates a potential pipeline incident using AI and a gaming platform. ChatGPT search is growing quickly in Europe, OpenAI claims, and Instagram is using AI to find teens lying about their age and restricting their accounts.
Tuesday.
From Tuesday, April 22nd, the White House is drafting an executive order that would integrate AI into K-12 education nationwide. Under the proposal, federal agencies would train students in foundational AI literacy, fund teacher training, and launch an AI challenge for students. The International Monetary Fund says AI could boost global GDP by 0.5% every year through 2030, even with its growing carbon footprint. The warning is that AI data centers are already using energy equivalent to 8 Empire State Building's worth of servers, and by 2030, electricity demands could triple. Still, the IMF says that economic gains will likely outweigh the environmental costs if we push for cleaner tech and smarter implementation, and that's a big if. Anthropic is predicting AI-powered virtual employees will start showing up inside company networks within this year, really. These AIs won't just be tools. They'll have memory, logins, responsibilities, and decision-making powers, but that comes with major security questions. Who is accountable when an AI goes rogue, and how do you secure a workforce that you can't see? In a twist at Google's antitrust trial, OpenAI's Nick Turley said the company would buy Chrome if given the chance. Why? To build a truly AI-first browser. OpenAI already hired ex-Google engineers who helped build Chrome, and rumors are swirling about an OpenAI-built browser. The UAE just became the first country planning to use AI not just to review, but to write its legislation. The goal is drafting laws 70% faster, being more responsive to the economy, and easier to update. AI could scan public data, measure impact, and even suggest regulatory updates automatically. In medical news, AI tools are becoming essential in oncology, helping with everything from treatment planning to pattern recognition and diagnostics. Dr. Douglas Flores says AI is saving oncologists time, reducing burnout, and even helping identify the best therapies based on genetic markers. And in a fun story, fashion icon Norma Kamali is using generative AI to reimagine decades of her design archive. Her AI doesn't just remix styles, it invents entirely new ones. Through her custom model trained on her past work, she's proving AI can be a creative partner, not a replacement, and a powerful tool for sustainable on-demand fashion production.
Wednesday.
MIT researchers have reimagined machine learning as a periodic table. Their new framework connects over 20 classical ML algorithms through a unifying equation. And it's not just theory. They've actually used it to invent a new image classifier that outperforms state-of-the-art by 8%. With empty slots hinting at future discoveries, this table could accelerate how we build AI the same way that the chemical table shaped modern science.
I love that.
I love that part. In a new episode of The AI Revolution in Medicine, Epic's Seth Hain and Microsoft's Dr. Matt Lundgren reveal how generative AI is being embedded across hospitals, from reducing paperwork to assisting with diagnostics and follow-ups. Over 150 tools are in development with multimodal AI in use. This isn't in the future. It's actually live in over 300 systems today. There are big changes at Intel. Under new CEO Lip Bhutan, the company plans to cut over 20% of its workforce. The move is a part of a pivot back back to engineering roots and a major reshuffling of its AI chip strategy after trailing competitors like NVIDIA. It is Intel's second major round of layoffs in under a year. The AI boom may be hitting turbulence as US-China tariffs soar. Tech giants are reconsidering massive data center investments. Microsoft and Amazon have already slowed projects. Hardware costs are rising, supply chains are strained, and analysts worry this could stall America's AI momentum just as it was hitting full throttle. In the Google court case, court documents have revealed Gemini now has 350 million monthly users, up from just 9 million daily users in October. It's still behind ChatGPT, but shows Google's integrations into Samsung Workspace and Chrome are working. And with more companies using AI to write code, Endor Labs has just raised $93 million to scan code for security flaws in real time. They're already protecting 5 million apps and count OpenAI and Dropbox as customers. And finally, Noxtua, formerly Zane, just raised over $92 million to build sovereign AI for the German legal system. With access to the largest legal document database in the region, their Beck Noxtua model runs entirely on German infrastructure, addressing geopolitical and privacy concerns head on.
Thursday.
We begin with a major advancement in cancer treatment. Researchers at UT Southwestern Medical Center have developed an AI model that can predict which kidney cancer patients will respond to anti-angiogenic therapies. These drugs only help about half of patients, but with this AI tool, doctors could soon target the right therapies with greater accuracy, saving lives, time, and money. Meanwhile, at the University of Pittsburgh, a new cloud innovation center is fusing AI with sports science. In partnership with AWS, Pitt is using AI to optimize athlete performance and injury prevention with real-time health monitoring, predictive injury alerts, and customized training regimens. Now, in an unexpected twist, the California State Bar admitted that AI helped write questions for the February bar exam. While it may mark a turning point for how we evaluate future lawyers, critics are calling for stronger oversight in high-stakes settings. At the Department of Defense, officials are pushing hard to integrate AI into everything from intelligence to battlefield logistics. One official called it mission critical to U.S. military dominance. New efforts include AI for real-time decision-making, background checks, and cybersecurity defenses. Now, more locally in New York, the state appointed its first ever chief AI officer. Shreya Ahmed will oversee a $90 million Empire AI initiative aimed at turning the Empire State into a national hub for ethical and practical AI deployment across public institutions. In infrastructure and power, a study from Epoch AI shows that by 2030, leading AI supercomputers could need as much electricity as 9 million homes, about 9 gigawatts. That's the output of 9 nuclear reactors. The AI race isn't just about chips and code, folks. It is about power grids and climate impact. Tech giants are now exploring nuclear energy and more efficient hardware to offset the growing demand. And to help you visualize that impact, engineer Julian Delvand created a tool that estimates how much electricity your chatbot conversations consume. For example, one Llama 3.3 query is the equivalent to running a microwave for 0.12 seconds. And finally, in what I consider to be the most interesting topic of the day, Anthropic is launching a research program on model welfare. This program will explore whether AI models might someday deserve ethical consideration. While most researchers say today's models aren't conscious, Anthropic's move opens a provocative discussion about the rights of advanced AI. They're not claiming AI feels pain, but they are asking what we'll do if someday it might.
Friday.
Today is April 25th. It's Friday, and Intel is taking a fresh shot at challenging NVIDIA in the AI chip market. Under new CEO Lip Bhutan, Intel plans to sharpen its current products for emerging AI trends like robotics and autonomous agents. The company will focus on building in-house rather than relying on acquisitions, which is a shift from its failed past attempts with startups like Nirvana and Habana Labs. Meanwhile, in China, Baidu unveiled 2 new AI models, Ernie 4.5 Turbo and Ernie X1 Turbo, stepping up its efforts as competition heats up within the Chinese AI sector. Baidu is betting big on its Ernie models to secure its place as China's top AI powerhouse.
Abu Dhabi investment firm MGX announced plans to invest 8 to 10 billion with a B annually into AI infrastructure and companies, especially in the U.S., citing America's leadership in the AI race. They're part of the AI infrastructure partnership alongside BlackRock, Microsoft, and NVIDIA, who is also in partnership with everybody else, aiming to deploy $100 billion total into building next-gen AI data centers and power systems to meet ballooning demand. Separately, Chinese AI startup Manus AI, we talked about this a week or two ago, raised $75 million at a $500 million valuation from Benchmark, planning to expand aggressively into the US, Japan, and the Middle East. I have watched a couple reviews of Manus, which show that it's not all it's cracked up to be, but maybe that's why it's only a $500 million investment. But this shows that even amid all of the geopolitical attention that's out there, Chinese firms, especially AI firms, are still pushing globally and they're still seeing results.
A little bit closer to home, in North Carolina, the Department of Information Technology appointed Isa Shea as its first AI governance and policy executive. Shea will focus on promoting responsible, ethical AI use across state agencies while protecting resident data. North Carolina is now one of the few states proactively setting up AI governance frameworks. And at a broader level, Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei published a major essay urging the industry to make AI more interpretable. He set a goal for Anthropic to reliably detect most model problems by 2027, warning that the world is racing toward advanced AI without understanding how these systems really work, calling it, quote, basically unacceptable for humanity to remain ignorant.
Dario's such a boss, man. MIT, in other news, MIT's Lincoln Laboratory is working with the U.S. Air Force's 618th Air Operations Center to overhaul mission planning with conversational AI. The system uses natural language processing to synthesize critical information from hundreds of daily chat messages, improving decision speed for logistics like cargo, transport, and refueling missions.
And Google reported that its AI Overviews feature is now used by 1.5 billion people monthly across 100 countries. It's part of Google's broader AI search expansion, including Circle to Search, which is growing fast on mobile devices.
And this one is maybe my favorite just because there's a lot of nuance baked in here. Finally, controversy is swirling around Cluely, a startup founded by two Columbia University dropouts. We all know some other famous startups founded by Ivy League dropouts. After building an AI tool to cheat on software engineering interviews, they raised $5.3 million in seed funding. Their tool, which runs hidden browser assistance during interviews, exams, and sales calls, is billed as the spell check for life, but critics say it's straight out of a dystopian sci-fi story.
And that covers the top headlines for today. And now what we want to do is I highlighted what I thought maybe were some of the biggest stories out of the week, and I just want to tee you up to get your opinion, your thoughts, your feelings, where your heart, where your head is at. And so the first one is at the government level. So at the federal and state level, we are starting to see real movement in taking AI seriously. So you have the White House has announced their plan to integrate AI into K through 12 education, and maybe I am naive or optimistic, but I think
both.
that could be, or both, could be bipartisan. And a piece of evidence for the bipartisan nature of that is that you have New York and North Carolina, two very different types of states, announced essentially the state head of AI. And we just, talked about it was Isa Shea is in North Carolina. I forget the New York head there. And so, I don't know, thoughts on the sort of tighter integration of AI into policy at the government level, federal and state?
My mind goes to CCPA, with the California Consumer Protection Act, I think it was, where around
Sounds
cookies. What's the GDPR was the EU's privacy legislation, and then California picked that up, and then there were all sorts
Privacy
of
Act, California Consumer Privacy Act.
Yeah, thank you. And there were all sorts of Maine was going to do one. I don't know if they did. I don't know. I don't recall North Carolina, but I think it's great that legislators are taking AI seriously. I am not confident that the apparatus of government is prepared to do good jobs in this space. So I think it's really a tough point in time because they'll never know less than they know right now about it, and they'll never be less grounded in reality to it. And it's going to move so fast. And by the time anyone gets up to speed in the government, that there's going to be 100 more things. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
You know what it makes me? I'm sorry. You know what it makes me think of? You told me that story the other day of you saw somebody go up to Andrew Ng and say, "I can't believe you didn't win the presidency,"
Yeah.
thinking it was Andrew Yang.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, either would be obviously way more versed in AI than the people. We won't. Whatever.
Yeah, without
We don't have to go
partisanizing
there.
things, it is definitely
Sure.
from the past administration or the current administration. Andrew Ng
Oh yeah.
and
Sure.
Andrew Yang both would be more
way more.
capable and prepared at an individual level. Hopefully, it's also the catch-22 of lobbyists, because it's like there are private individuals that represent private companies or public companies, but that do have a lot of knowledge, but they also have a lot of incentive, and they also have a lot of they're biased, biased towards things I would want or biased towards things I wouldn't want. But the bias is inherent, I think that this is more political or more geopolitical than AI. But I always think that we should take the states as experiments for things to then extrapolate further. So if a couple states take different policies and different procedures, and then we see which ones help people thrive through the AI regulation, not just AI thrive, then that probably is a net good. And hopefully we have some smart things to say about how that goes over time. But those are my 3 cents on it.
There's an interesting. Sorry, it made me think of this. So I was listening to a podcast today. It's the Future of Life Institute podcast, and it was they were interviewing a guy. I don't know who he is. His name is Jeffrey Ding, and the title of the podcast is "Inside China's AI Strategy: Innovation, Diffusion, and U.S. Relations." And one of the things that he brought up that I thought was interesting, because it really did map onto what I thought about it, is that he said pretty much China and the U.S. think the same thing about each other, and it's strange. And the thing that they think about each other is that they are each is way more sort of centralized and has a concerted effort towards their AI strategy overall. China thinks that about the U.S. And he pointed to, I guess in the Biden administration, there was this 20-point plan about these infrastructure plays and the points that they wanted to hit, and they took that list as, oh look, this is the president saying this is the thing that we're going to do, and then that would disseminate down. And I don't know if that's a cultural thing where if Xi Jinping or the party themselves say something, then a Baidu or a whoever has to take that on. I don't claim to know what I'm talking about in that space at all. But then of course on the American side, the U.S. thinks that China is very centralized in the way that their strategy is. And basically he was saying it's just not true on either side, that it is way more disparate than one would think. And I feel like I think that about the American path and not about the Chinese path. It was just interesting to hear him say that.
Yeah, for sure. I would agree with the discordance rather than unity and organization at any large scale. We barely have concordance with regular technology, let alone the stuff that was invented this morning,
Yeah, well, I will say, to move on to the next item, something that I actually am excited about is that Intel has a new CEO. I'm not excited about this part for all the people, but they are cutting their workforce by 20% and pivoting their focus to internal chip development in order to compete with NVIDIA. And I just honestly love to see this kind of pressure in this space. I hate the idea of the massive job loss, and that sucks. And we're going to talk about that more very soon. But it's only great for the ecosystem, but also I think for the US in this race, if Intel can actually become a serious player again.
Yeah. I mean, for business nerds, Intel is one of the most amazing stories back when Andy Grove was the CEO. And I'm not a to the letter academic historian on the subject, but you've got Gordon Moore was at Intel, of Moore's Law's fame. You've got, I think, was Claude Shannon involved with that group? I blur the lines between the 50s and 60s going into the Intel. Because wasn't it? What was the
Intel or IBM? I can't remember.
I forget, but it was something semiconductors, and then it changed into Intel and all this. And Andy Grove was the CEO, Austrian born, I believe. And he's got the quote, "Only the paranoid survive." And he's the one who took Intel from making memory chips, which was, I don't know, 70-80% of their dollars. And, you know, astute viewers, if and when they show up, they'll be able to fact check me on all this because I'm kind of rounding the corners here. But what's up?
We have 0 at the moment, so you're
all right,
good.
Cool.
No worries.
Well, in retrospect, if anybody watches, you'll call me on it. But no, Andy Grove famously did this fast, hard 180 or sharp turn away from their memory chips into CPUs, into processing architecture, and it seemed crazy to everyone. It was wildly described as just irresponsibly drastic, and it catapulted them into the world leader for decades of processing. And I mean, you know, I think we talk about GPUs because they are the frontier and they are the thing that powers AI, but Intel is still, to my understanding, the market leader in CPUs. I mean, I'm looking to buy a new computer. I'm only picking an Intel, you know, CPU machine.
There was that big controversy recently. We haven't talked about that, but that doesn't matter.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of people trying to and claiming that they can get AI performance comparable to GPUs on CPUs. And if that becomes the case, well, I mean, that is like bigger than 10 DeepSeeks if it actually can truly be equivalent or better. Because
big if true.
The billions, tens to hundreds of billions of dollars in capex on GPUs would become kind of drastically undervalued compared to what the cost was. And so you have all this investment that just disappears and dries up. And so anyway, but look, focusing on internal chip development is a big thing because that's a step away from Taiwan. Assuming they mean actually making it and not going through TSMC as a fab, you know, get it. We need diversity of chips. We need diversity of chips, and so that's good news on that front.
Yeah. And finally, to pivot to someone who I know that both of us, we are big fans of this gentleman. Two very interesting releases this week from Anthropic. The company posted on their research blog discussing that they value the idea and are diving into the idea of model welfare. That is, what would it look like if AI one day deserved moral consideration? And then today, we just talked about CEO Dario Amodei is pushing for model interpretability. And just to say that quote again, I have it right here. He says, it's basically unacceptable for humanity to remain ignorant of what's going on behind the scenes in an LLM, multimodal, just text, whatever.
I think it's important to make sure those two pieces are diversified or differentiated. I know you didn't mean them like to be coalesced, but they're connected by the CEO, right? They're connected by the speaker. But model welfare, I think, is a really new, there's going to be a lot of debate on pros, cons, timing, things there. Model interpretability, I think everyone agrees with with what he's saying, or at least supports their efforts in it, right? Interpretability is like, that jailbreak we talked about. You should be able to okay, I see that the jailbreak is possible. Let's look under the hood and understand why that jailbreak is possible so that we can patch that bug. Right now, you can't do that. You can't say, how do we fix this and look and see. You got to guess and try and not know what's going to change. You patch this bug. You don't know what hole is left open from what you changed. And that's the black box problem, and that's what interpretability ideally solves. And I mean, it's not surprising. Anthropic has been a leader in interpretability. Like that is a big push of theirs. Model welfare, I think, is going to be much more controversial. This is Short Circuit 2, robots turning citizens, and you know, having that gets Short Circuit 2 really steps on some civil rights toes. So I'm not going to go down the path. But you guys should watch it. It holds up to a degree. You. The soundtrack's great.
All right.
For a hero at the end of the night. But model welfare
get demonetized.
Yeah. Oh yeah, copyright music. That's our problem.
Copyright. That's our problem.
No, but model welfare, I do think it's like my gut on that is you got to define or conflate consciousness in this if you're going to talk about welfare.
Course.
If you're
That's
going to
what it
say
is. That's
if you're going to say that machine over there has feelings that we have to care about, then you got to like elaborate on how those feelings are happening. Maybe they are more interrelated because interpretability means we could prove different outputs and you could see it. So maybe they are more interconnected, but right now I think that is a science fiction layer of like the today conversation. I'm glad they're trying to do something, but that ain't
I mean,
right now for me.
I don't know if you've heard. I know both you and I listen to Dwarkesh podcast, and I mean he brings up the idea like he brings up the horrors that is factory farming, and his point around that is like, how do we right now plan for and try to strategically not allow that to happen to potentially way more many minds. I mean, there's something like, it's almost something like, I think there's 100 billion farmed animals a year globally. And so in the AI space, we could be talking about orders of magnitude more than that, of endless minds that could potentially suffer if they do become conscious at some point. And so let's think about it now before we get there. And I mean, I know we just went deep into like a bunch of serious topics very briefly, but like it's like science fiction until it's not. And so I like the idea, I like the path of like people should care about it now, and maybe it doesn't happen. So who knows?
I think it's important. Don't let my like flippancy on the introduction of the topic say it's not important.
No.
I think there's a million things that we have. It's like John Carmack, the developer employed by Meta currently, talked about the metaverse, and we were 6 inventions away, and now we're like 5 or 4 or something. I think we're 100 aha or 1,000 aha, true aha, like discoveries about AI and the convergence of like the definition of our own consciousness and biological consciousness. And so it's like, it's very important and we should do it now and more, but it's also like certainly the urgency, importancy scale, like we got to make sure we don't blow ourselves up so we have enough time to have more philosophical understanding of these things.
Yes, please.
Yeah, exactly. Both are true.
Both. It's been a good week in AI, and we'll be back to talk again once more next week and keep everyone informed and inspired.
Yeah, we're not replaced yet.
And that's it for this week's Last Week in AI. If you found this helpful, we would love your support. Hit follow so you can get updates each week. A like and a comment help the algorithm know to push this out more. And most importantly, please think of a friend, a family member, a colleague who would benefit from this content and share this with them. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you next week.